Yo, what up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Will. For those of you that don't know, thanks for joining us for our long form show. This is the Fandom Frequency Show, where we get into multiple topics, whether that's breaking news, trailer breakdowns, full on reviews, recaps of TV shows, whatever. We get into it here and just get into a whole bunch of topics and everything like that. So make sure if you dig anything we're talking about today, if you have any thoughts of your own, jump into the comment section below. We love to discuss all these different nerdy topics with you guys. Excuse me. But with no further ado, we're going to get right into this and we're going to start the show off with our usual segment. What's the word? What's the word is where we get into all those various breaking news topics and stuff like that throughout the course of the week as I'm prepping the show, and whatever big news topics drop the day of. We record the show the week leading up to it, and we're doing these long form shows every week. And this is some of the bigger topics that dropped within the last week, and one I literally just found out about as I was prepping the show today for this. So we'll get into that one real brief in just a moment here as we're talking about the DC stuff. But this first one isn't necessarily like a huge, well, kind of big news, but not necessarily huge news or anything like that. But for those of you that may not have known, James Gunn's Superman Legacy, the big Superman relaunch for the DC universe next year in like July 2025. That was the working title for the long time, Superman Legacy. But now James Gunn recently revealed about a week or two ago that he's actually going to be just simply titling it Superman. So no more Superman Legacy. It's going to be just titled Superman. But the main thing is actually we got a little bit of a glimpse of the official logo right here. And if you can't tell, for those that don't maybe know about some of that DC Comics lore, we're going to be getting, it looks like a Kingdom Come inspired Superman logo right there, looking a little bit more alien like, so to speak, instead of looking at straight up traditional alphabetical S or anything like that, which I always thought was kind of weird in the last version with the Snyder stuff. Dug the Henry Cavill, but or I dug Henry Cavill as the character, but I always thought the symbol looked a little bit too much like a regular S. It didn't really make sense to me. It means hope. Now it's kind of stupid, in my personal opinion. But that's some of the bigger reveals there. And if you can't tell from some of that like ice looking stuff that's on the logo there, that's also seeming to imply that he's going to be at the Fortress of Solitude and everything like that. And we haven't seen really a real true blue version of that since Superman Returns back in 2006, 2007. So it's been about 15 years since we've even seen that, 16, 17 years since we've seen the Fortress of Solitude in live action with a proper Superman movie. And it's literally been 11 years since we've had a solo Superman movie at the time of me recording this video. So if you're watching this in the future in 2025, it's been 12 years since we've had a Superman film. And with Superman Legacy, Superman right around the corner, it's going to be interesting to see where James Gunn's going to take this stuff. We still don't have any big plot points or anything like that with who's going to be the main villain. We know Lex Luthor's in it, but we don't necessarily know all the big details going in, except for some of the big character cameos like Guy Gardner, Hot Girl, Metamorpho, things like that. And we know we got Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen. We got, Mr. Perry back as well, Matthew Perry. So we got the usual suspects for Metropolis, so to speak. So it's going to be interesting to see what really changed about the story that maybe made James Gunn switch up the title. If it doesn't really have any bearing on the story at all, it'll be interesting to see where that goes. But y'all let me know if you prefer the Superman Legacy title or if you just like simply Superman. I kind of like the Superman Legacy title, but I guess him trying to make this a first film in a new series, maybe he didn't feel like that jived as well and felt like it was more of a sequel name more so than like a first movie in a series type of thing. So who knows? But it'll be interesting to see. That is for damn sure. But this one's a little bit of a bummer on the next one, and we're going to stay in the world of DC, but not the DCU proper per se, but Elseworlds. Unfortunately, for those of y'all that love the Batman from 2022 like I did, that being potentially my favorite Batman film of all time now, but it's at least in 2 or 3. But we're not getting Batman Part 2 from Matt Reeves until 2026, man. They just delayed this thing a full year till October 2026. I'm upset. But we all know mainly the reason is because of the strike. But it also seems like they're really adamant about adding or about dropping this next Batman film in October. Now, is it going to be an actual long Halloween storyline like verbatim this time? Does it have any real thing with the plot? Or is it just they're aiming for that time because nothing else really in that sphere is usually around that? It's wide open right now in 2026. Also, they had to delay the film a bit anyways till at least March or April of 2026 because all the freaking strikes and everything last year has pushed back filming. They haven't even done a single shot on this film yet. They haven't filmed anything. So it looks like they're going to probably get things going around the summertime. So we wouldn't have got this before, you know, it had been a bit of a delay anyway, so we probably wouldn't have got this film when we wanted to initially. Either way, but I'm super bummed that we're gonna have to wait a whole extra year for this next film because I love the Batman. It is the dark, detective-driven Batman I've been wanting for years. Ever since they did Batman Begins in 2005, I've been wanting something like this because Batman Begins is awesome. Don't get me wrong; it's one of the best Batman films all time. Number two, number three, easy. You know, it's always going to be one of those top tier Batman films, but it just was missing that true detective element. That true world's greatest detective has always been missing a little bit. Michael Keaton was probably the closest we ever had with those vibes really in the film. So I really, really dig how they really leaned into that. I really like Robert Pattinson's performance as Batman, one of the best on screen Batman for sure. And his Bruce Wayne definitely leaves a little bit to be desired, but I think in this next film, he's going to play in more into that side of the character and developing that persona and bringing that into the dynamics of everything going on with this character of Bruce Wayne, aka Batman. So, really interested to see where things are going to go. We got the Penguin actually coming out on TV this year on HBO Max. So, we may even get a season 2 before we get the Batman 2. So, I can't wait to see what they do with the Penguin on HBO Max. And if that's good, that might be able to kind of help me out so I don't get too much Batman withdrawals over here because we're a long ways off from Brave and the Bold, and I love my Batman movies. So give me Batman to the end of time, baby. But we're going to have to wait just a little bit longer to get this Batman film. And one thing that I found out about today that was random is they're making a Suicide Squad anime, or isekai, as the freaking weebs would say. It's a certain genre or subgenre of anime or some shit. I don't know. But they're making an anime version of Suicide Squad that is heavily focused on Harley Quinn and the Joker, like the live action 2016 film was trying to do, but wrote terribly. This one looks like they're nailing that aspect a lot better. You got a lot of the same characters kind of mixed in from James Gunn's The Suicide Squad and David Ayer's The Shitty Suicide Squad. So you're kind of mixing in a lot of the regular suspects from those two iterations of the team because you got a version of Peacemaker, a version of Deadshot, I think it looks like. And you also got King Shark in there. There's another weird character that looks a little bit like Michael Jackson. I don't know who the hell that's supposed to be. And then it looks like they showed Katana as well. So you're getting a little bit of the regular suspects from the Suicide Squad comics and the main kind of suspects from the films as well. So they're kind of mixing both of those elements in. But it looks interesting to say the least. There's a trailer out there now if you want to check it out on YouTube. It's Suicide Squad Isekai anime. It's coming out sometime this year. It's going to be streaming on Max, I guess. But yeah, so just thought that was kind of interesting and something I randomly came across today. So just wanted to mention that on the show, you know what I'm saying? And just bring up a little something y'all might not know about. But we also got some other cool news right here. We finally got a release date for the next Star Wars series, my most anticipated Star Wars series since they announced everything past The Mandalorian itself. The Acolyte is going to finally drop its premiere and drop the first episode or however many episodes they're going to do on June 4th, Tuesday, June 4th. So it looks like Disney Plus is going for those Tuesdays, I guess, at least with Star Wars or maybe permanently. And we did hear some rumblings before that this was going to be a Sith focused story. It was going to lean into the darker tone a bit more, shoot more on location, give a little bit more of that Andor real world vibe to it. So I'm definitely intrigued and interested in that. And I like the things that they're teasing with this poster right here with the blood representing the red lightsaber, but there's that bloodshed on the hilt of the lightsaber as well. So I really hope that they are leaning into this darker, more adult vibe because although Star Wars is for all ages, obviously, I do think they need to make some content that does lean into the older side of the audience, like they do for the kid side of the audience, because you don't want to leave them out. And I think there's plenty of stuff that's right there in the middle, like The Mandalorian, Obi-Wan, Book of Boba Fett, Bad Batch, all the stuff, mostly Tales of the Jedi, is for all ages. So I feel like it's about time, besides Andor, we get some straight up mature, well written, actually nuanced storytelling in the world of Star Wars. So my fingers are definitely crossed for this. I'm really hoping us getting to jump into a new time period in live action with the High Republic, going pre-Phantom Menace, maybe getting a young Yoda, but maybe nothing else that we are familiar with too much past the regular stereotypical Jedi stuff that we all know with the lightsabers and the council and whatnot. But I think there's so much potential with exploring this piece of the overall timeline of the Star Wars universe as we know it that we haven't delved into much, if at all, in general, in all forms of entertainment between books, video games, comics, and movies and TV. But we haven't explored any of that in most of those mediums that I just named off, besides books. That's it. We have not delved into this time period whatsoever. So I'm definitely intrigued and interested in that. By the time you're watching this episode right here, the trailer will be dropping within several hours of you watching this late Monday night or Tuesday morning. So we're going to have a trailer reaction for this. I'm definitely going to get this up on the channel no later than Tuesday night, or I would say no later than Wednesday morning. You should see my reaction to the Acolyte first trailer drop. I am really, really hyped. I got my fingers crossed. I'm cautiously optimistic. But let me know what y'all think about this latest Star Wars show, this announcement. Were you hyped about the show? Are you worried about the show? Do you think they're going to pull punches and not be willing to go for that more mature rating? Or do you think that Star Wars is finally listening to some of us older nerds over here and going to give us a little bit of that flavor that we've been wanting, like Andor did so well, but mixing the lightsabers and the Jedi and Sith element? And to me, we got a perfect package right there. So we'll wait and see what happens with this thing, but I'm excited. Y'all let me know what you're thinking about this down below. And here we go. Here's the biggest topic, I would say, in the news portion of today, and that is surprise, Sydney. Sydney Prescott is back, and guess who else is coming back to direct for the first time in the series, but coming back to the series for the first time in years since he wrote the script for Scream 4. That's right, Kevin Williamson, the original mastermind behind the franchise himself, the creator, if you will, is coming in to direct a script written by Guy Busick, who was also one of the co-writers of Scream 5 and 6, one of the Radio Silence collaborators, of course, with a story by James Vanderbilt and Guy Busick. So I do find that interesting that neither Kevin Williamson or Guy Busick or James Vanderbilt are writing this movie. I do find that very interesting. And it does appear that Radio Silence are going to be the directors, Tyler Open and, or no, Tyler Bertinelli Open and no Tyler Gillette and I'm fucking up their names, but the two main directors from the last two movies are supposed to still be executive producing this because they got something else coming out over there on Universal. That film Abigail coming out in mid-April, which looks kick-ass, by the way. But getting back onto the subject at hand here, Nev Campbell made the announcement by showing the script and everything and confirming that she is back as Sydney Prescott. Scream 7's on. Kevin Williamson's going to be jumping into the director's chair, seeing what he can cook up for us fans. And I got to say, I know some of y'all are through the moon or through the roof, over the moon, and super hyped about this news. I am excited about it somewhat. I am happy to see Nev Campbell back. I'm always happy to see the fucking GOAT herself, Sydney Prescott, back in the franchise, if it's written well, of course. But for me personally, I'm a little trepidatious and a little bit less excited about this because I do feel like, obviously, the Carpenter sisters storyline and everything, the core four does seem to be off the table at this point between the Melissa Barrera controversy that we've covered on the channel before, or with Jenna Ortega getting bigger than every person involved with this film other than maybe Nev Campbell or Kevin Williamson themselves. So her going on and moving on from the franchise. We do know that Mason Gooding and Jasmine Savoy Brown have not been contacted so far, if they're telling the truth about Scream 7. So it does seem like the core four is dead in the water and we're not going down that road again. So I feel like we're missing out on the opportunity and the potential for the best stories and the best way to subvert and do something fresh with the franchise by getting into these heroines and maybe even making Sam a Ghostface killer, whatever. I just think we're losing a lot of the potential for the franchise to go in a new bold direction and end the 3-story arc that we were setting up here. That even himself, Mr. Skeet Ulrich himself, Ulrich, my bad, had even said in an interview recently that there was a 3-film arc planned out by Radio Silence that fucking Spyglass Entertainment has completely shit the bed on and isn't a possibility to be done anymore. So Sidney Prescott seems to be the only way we're going to be able to move forward with the franchise for now. But I feel like there's not a lot of interesting things to do with the character outside of her being a mother and a kid or kids being in danger. I don't know what else there is to do with her character at this point. There's not a lot left. We've explored her character very thoroughly between her being 17, 18 in the original and 96 Scream, all the way to 2000 in fucking 22, 21 with fucking Scream 5, dude. Like we've explored every aspect of this character pretty much. There's not much really to do with this character, in my opinion, that was going to be more interesting or equally as interesting as anything they could have did with the core four, and more primarily the Carpenter sisters, played by Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega, respectfully. Sam and Tara Carpenter not being a part of this, to me, puts a really big hole in the franchise and really makes it hard for them to hit something that's on the same level or exceed it, and also creates a lot of weird expectations and controversy and split of the fandom going into this. Like we're over here being Star Wars and shit. Like the Scream fandom was in kumbaya, we were in great spirits for these last 2 films, and now everything's kind of weird and in a kind of different place now. But I guess it's bound to happen with the modern day as we know it, with social media and even this space as it is, between that and the polarizing nature of everyone having to take one side over the other on so many things and having to hate on certain things and what have you, and having to take a stance and making all this stuff. I don't know how many Scream fans are truly not going to go to the theater because they got rid of Melissa Barrera or whatever. Because most people in my mind that like Scream are going to want to go regardless to go see Sidney Prescott once again, as I know I will, and as I know most of you will. So I'm not necessarily sure where they're going to go with the story. There's obviously been no rumors or heavy speculation or any reveals in that regard yet. But I do feel like the potential for this to be a great Scream installment is there, but there's very few avenues for them to take Sidney Prescott as a character in if they're not including any of these other threads we've built up in the last 2 films. So I do feel like it's a little bit weird, but hopefully we get to see Stu Marker come back and it'll pay off and be a great written story and we'll get some cool shit, right? Right? Stu's alive, baby. Get it up. Let's go. So that's pretty much it for Scream 7, man. Let me know what you think about the Scream 7 news. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you want to see as much pretty Sidney Prescott as they're willing to give you? Are you a little more burnt out like I am? Do you think there's a lot less potential for it to be dope and for there to be something new to explore with their character? Let me know what you think about it, regardless where you fall into it. I want to discuss it with y'all. And yeah, that's pretty much it for What's the Word, man. So we had some pretty cool little topics to talk about right there. Pretty cool topic. But now it is time for us to get into one of the main review portions of this, a recap, if you will. It's going to be talking about Invincible Season 5, Episode 6. No, sorry. Season 2, Episode 5, Season 2, Part 2, Invincible. It's back over there on Amazon Prime, baby. Back in full effect. Just watched the premiere of the second part of the season. And man, let me tell you what. We're off to a good ass start. We're off to a really good start. I definitely dug this premiere. Now, it didn't blow me away like the previous episode did, episode 4, where Omni-Man and Mark had the battle against the Vultramites and everything went to shit and set up a really big conflict soon to come down the line, I'm sure, before the season's through, between the Vultramites and Mark, or maybe it might be saved for a future season. I don't know. I never read the comics. And I do intend to keep it that way until I finish the series. But man, it is just super interesting to see how there's no Omni-Man in this episode. You get to explore a little bit of Adam Eve and whatnot and her relationship with Rex or whatever the fuck his name is. But they don't necessarily dive into as much Omni-Man stuff as I was kind of expecting. So that was a little bit surprising to me in a general sense. But I was like, hey, whatever, we'll survive. But overall, I would say it's a really, really good premiere. I wouldn't say it's something that necessarily blew me away, but I really dug the premiere episode. I thought there was some interesting stuff going on with Mark bringing his half brother, I guess you would say, down to Earth and having his mom have to take care of some alien love child from somebody else. You know what I mean? It was just so much weird, nuance, fucked up stuff going on there that you could definitely get into some deeper discussions about or whatever, I guess. But it was just crazy, man. And just seeing all the tough stuff that his mom, Deborah, has to go through and all that. And then him getting called into space again when he's barely got back home and trying to catch up on everything he missed in school and with his girl and letting people know and updates on what's going on with his dad and everything going on there. And he just can't catch it. He just can't catch a break, man. Like freaking Walton Goggins' character is always like, hey, I need to send you out to space again. It's like, bro, I just got home, man. I just took my shoes off. Like, leave me the fuck alone right now, man. Like, it's just like, and I totally get where he's coming from because it's like you just don't want to get bothered at the moment, you know what I mean? And it sucks, So that was the one thing where I was like, man, I feel for my boy Mark right now for sure. And hopefully he'll finally get a chance to catch a breath, and everything like that. And it was cool to catch up with Paul the alien and see what's going on with him and see how that whole thing was a subversion because the guy that was pretending to be evil isn't actually evil, or we had assumed to be evil. He's actually the one Voltramite that went against the Empire and rebelled and is trying to do good and kind of assemble him and get Paul the alien suit up to Super Saiyan so he can go get Mark and get him trained up so they could team up together to take out the Voltramites, hopefully with Omni-Man's help as well, and take them down once and for all and end this whole tirade that these guys are doing across the galaxy, Saiyan style and everything like that. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see where the rest of the season goes. We haven't caught up with Angstrom Levy yet. There's a lot of dangling plot threads that we haven't really necessarily caught up with quite yet. So it'll be really interesting to see where they take things in the future with this one. But yeah, man, I really, really dug this premiere episode for sure. But let me know, man. I want to know what you guys thought about this one. It wasn't necessarily one of my favorite episodes. I thought it was just pretty good. But hopefully they'll start to kind of pick up steam a little bit in the rest of the season. And as things progress, it'll start to get even more intense as we continue going on with this thing, man. But I really, really dug it. I thought it was good. Not great, but I thought it was good. And it's a good continuation of this season. But y'all let me know what you thought about this latest episode of Invincible down below in the comments. I would love to hear y'all's thoughts on that. But that's pretty much it for Invincible. Wasn't too many big spoilers to get into, but just didn't want to ruin nothing for y'all. So giving you fair warning as usual. But now it is time to get into the main review of the show. And I'm talking about Love Lies Bleeding, the latest A24 flick directed by a young lady named Rose Glass, who did have a previous film called Saint Maud that came out on Netflix, if I'm not mistaken. And this is one of those, revenge type thrillers, no John Wick energy in this, though. This film definitely feels like a love child between, I would say Fargo, Thelma and Louise, and a little bit of that classic A24 weirdness, you know what I mean? Starring the great Katie O'Brien and, starring the great Kristen Stewart as well. And I know a lot of y'all got hate for her back in the day from Twilight, but she has definitely proven herself to be a really kick-ass actress and has completely grown out of that, and I think is completely irrelevant to what's going on now. You know what I mean? But this is one of those movies that kind of went a little bit more under the radar, so y'all might not be as privy to it. So I'll give you a little bit of a plot synopsis before I get into my overall thoughts on this thing. But essentially, it's a revenge thriller that takes place in, like, I think New Mexico or something like that. And Katie O'Brien plays the buff lady you seen, the bodybuilder character of Jackie, who's kind of like reminds me a little bit of Roddy Piper's character in They Live, where she's just kind of a hitchhiker and just kind of goes from place to place and is kind of making her way over to Vegas to try to train and participate in this bodybuilding competition going down in Vegas and all that stuff. And she ends up running into Kristen Stewart's character of Lulu, and who's managing the gym that she ends up, Katie O'Brien's character of Jackie, ends up going to train. And she ends up getting looped into this whole crazy fiasco with Kristen Stewart's character's dad, played by the great Ed Harris. And I'm forgetting the dad's name right now. But yeah, that's pretty much the setup for the film. Shit hits the fan and gets even crazier as it goes along. And I must say, the one thing I definitely want to highlight about this movie, first and foremost, is how Rose Glass, and I'm not sure if she wrote and directed the film, but whoever wrote it, whatever, they did such a great job at keeping you on your toes and subverting your expectations and with characters making these decisions and doing certain things that you won't see coming. And once you think about it afterwards, you can kind of see how things got to that point, and it always serves the story. I think Rose Glass did such a phenomenal job at directing and writing this thing or whatever, and crafting and putting this film together. It does have its own unique feel, and it does play on, like I said, like Fargo and Thelma and Louise and these other like thrillers that you've seen, before in the past. Has a very has a very quirky energy in that way, and a very like true authentic 80s vibe, because it does take place in 1985, I think. And they really do a great job at capturing the 80s and really giving it that atmosphere and that vibe. And I just really love the unpredictability of the characters and the story and where things were going and the twists and turns that happened. I was never able to necessarily predict every single thing that was going to go down. And that to me is very refreshing these days, when we've all seen a bunch of movies and we analyze movies and look at them and all this stuff. And, everything's been done under the sun. Nothing's original anymore. But it's really cool to see the way that they were able to kind of do things in a way that you kind of expected, but also was able to subvert your expectations and go in a different direction, but also really give you a payoff that feels satisfying or makes sense with the story that they're telling. And that to me is also another big plus and very refreshing, and which is so well done, man. And I love the acting across the board, but I got to give a lot of love to Katie O'Brien for sure. I think she did such a great job at really showing the range that she has as an actress, and showing the talent that she really has, and being able to play a more complicated, more complex, darker, more fucked up character that isn't necessarily the hero in this story, isn't necessarily a protagonist in the story, as you might think from the marketing or some of the promotion. Definitely not. I would almost call Jackie the villain of the film, or the antagonist of the film, if you really look at it in a certain aspect of the way that they do this thing and the way that they put this together. And I think Katie O'Brien did such a great job at bringing this character to life, between her addiction with the whole steroid angle and the whole thing with her dark past never really fully coming to light. Was another great aspect of the film, where they left things up in the air a little bit, in the sense of, you don't know every single aspect of these characters' past. They don't tell you every single thing, and it gives them a bit of more mystique, and giving it an air of mystery is something that they don't do a lot these days. And don't trust their audience, and just let us be able to kind of draw our own conclusions and fill in the gaps where we may, in simple little lines of dialogue, like I kill people, you know what I mean? And just those little hints to things that may have gone down in the past, to where brought those characters like Jackie and Lulu to where they are today. And they've both done dirt. They've both killed people. They've both done fucked up things. And that was the interesting thing with their characters, and the way that they come together and form this relationship and this love they have for each other. And the fact that they've both done fucked up things, and both have great qualities about themselves, and both have a genuine love for each other, and have that connection, and are willing to kill and do whatever they need to in order to be with each other and get out of this situation. And to me, that all sold, and I bought it all, and the love story angle, and everything that really happened there. I really bought it, and I really dug that aspect to it. And I love how this movie does play with some gore and some horror vibes at times as well. And the way that they're able to seamlessly wrap that into the mix with the sound design, and even just some of the production choices and some of the editing style and things like that. And the sound design of like her muscles growing with the steroids and all this different stuff going on. I just loved the unique energy and the visceral sound design, and the visceral parts to the action and the suspense that was going on. And it was just really good, man. Like, it wasn't necessarily like this like Dune Part 2 type thing where it just blew me away and I was on the edge of my seat and couldn't believe it or whatever. It's not this masterpiece of a film or anything of that nature, but it's just so well done and so well executed for what they were trying to go for. And I think just really oozed a sense of style and a sense of creativity that you don't see in a lot of movies. And really, I think this is more where A24 shines, where they don't get too artsy and too weird, where they let the audience draw their own conclusions for things. It is a nuanced and well-made movie that is a new story, that is something original, but at the same time can give you something unique and fresh, and a weird movie, and give you those weird vibes at the same time, without forgetting about the entertainment value, and wanting to make sure that you as an audience member are satisfied and actually excited and interested in what's going on. So I really, really dug that aspect to it. And one thing I also wanted to mention was a score. I love how it captures that 80s vibe, but really feels like one of those like early like 80s like Terminator, The Hitcher. Like, it really has that gritty vibe to it for being a newer movie and doesn't necessarily feel like it's an 80s movie the way they film it all the time, but in moments it does. And in a certain way with the film, I like the gritty vibe that they bring to it and really bring to it, and this nastiness. Not like a Rob Zombie, like hillbilly nasty, but just that, I don't know, that edge that really gives it something special, and how like you can't really necessarily tell what state they're in, but you can kind of guess it might be New Mexico or something like that. But I don't remember them explicitly saying, so maybe I missed that detail. But just the way they're able to bring this all to life, I thought was so cool. And it's just a really cool and unique film. I thought it was just very well executed for what they were going for. So for me personally, I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. I thought Love Lies Bleeding was a really, really well done film. And if you get a chance to check this out in theaters and you have it at a theater near you, because it is starting to get into more of a limited run later this week and through the rest of it, it's probably going to phase out of theaters by the time we get to like some of these other films down the line, like Civil War and other things like that. I think we're going to be kind of transitioning out of this film being available in theaters. But if you can make it out to somewhere and check this out, I highly recommend it. It's really well done. The acting's good. The direction is really strong. It's a really cool movie. It flies right by at like an even 145, maybe hour and 50 minutes. So around 100 minutes or so. It really flies by. It's really, really well done. Bravo to freaking Katie O'Brien for really showing what she's got as an actress and really stepping out and showing that great performance. It's a really kick-ass movie, man. Love Lies Bleeding. Go check it out. If you don't mind spoilers and want to go check it out and see it for yourself, definitely do that. And if you saw this film somehow this weekend or throughout the week or whatever, or whenever you see this, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments below. I would love to discuss this film with y'all. And I love getting into these indie movies and different things that aren't always the big blockbusters, but still appeal to my sensibilities and fits into what we're doing here on the channel and all that. So definitely check out Love Lies Bleeding. It's in theaters now. Go check it out where you can at your local cinema throughout the rest of this week, because after that, I think it's going to be exclusively in Santa Ana when it comes to Southern California. So if you're in a different state, you're going to have to do some different homework and digging around to figure out which theater is going to have it for you, which chain and all that stuff. I never get to travel anywhere out of state, so I don't know where anything is. So y'all have to fill in those gaps yourselves, but it's a really, really kick-ass movie. Highly recommend it. 8 out of 10. But yeah, I think that's it for this episode, man. A little bit short and sweet. We had a lot of cool topics to get into today. I'm trying to keep these episodes between 30 minutes and an hour. I don't want to go too long on them. So y'all let me know if this format works, if you really dig what we're doing here with the long form show, if we need to switch it up, add more segments, make it a little longer, jam pack it some more. Y'all let me know what you want to see out of these long form shows. I'm really trying to experiment and find a good rhythm with these and figure out what you guys like, how I like to do it, and ways that we can cover all the different topics going on today. Because between this full-time job that I got where they want you there all day till from opening to closing, it's a little tough to get around to these videos and singular stuff. So sometimes we got to jam them into these long form shows, but I have a fun time just getting through all these topics and just discussing all this stuff and just getting all into it, man. So it's always a good time. Appreciate each and every one of you for watching and listening and sticking around till the very end of this thing. Really, really do appreciate that. Make sure you go check out our X-Men review series. We've done the original X-Men trilogy and the shitbox that is known as X-Men Origins Wolverine. So make sure you can check out those reviews and everything like that. This is one of our first few new releases when it comes to films, but we got Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire this week coming out. Spoiler review on the next episode of this long form show. And we got Godzilla Kong, the New Empire, dropping the week afterwards. So we got some new releases coming at y'all fast and furious. Don't forget about the TV stuff. Invincible season 5 we'll be covering. Season 2 we'll be covering that. And also don't forget about our coverage of X-Men 97. We're going to be covering that every single week as well, whether that's singular video or on the long form. One way or another, X-Men 97 reviews are going to be hitting y'all each and every week until the end of the show in, I think, early May or late May, something like that. So make sure you stay tuned. Don't sleep on any of this dopeness we got going on here. And thank you for watching and listening. Peace.